Here's what happened. I saw a conversation between Stephen Bartlett and Richard Reeves where the title of this video for the clip caught my eye. And then what Richard talked about throughout the conversation, I didn't know a lot about him beforehand, resonated. And it then caused me to open up more to this understanding of what it means to have no real friends. And that was the title, was Why Men Have No Real Friends. And it ties into then with this conversation of why having no real friends fuels burnout, because there is a connection there that I want to unpack with you today. And I'm going to share also my own personal stories and how I've worked through this in my own life and the challenges I still face with it. So this is Make Burnout Extinct podcast. I'm Robert David Weeks. Today I want to start it with my own experiences. It's been a challenge. If I were to look back growing up, I'm the youngest of three boys. And I always felt like I was looking outwardly to other people of how I should live my life, what I wanted out of life. I thought I had to put that in the hands of other people. And it was nothing that anyone else put on me if that wasn't on my parents or my brothers, but it happened. And from there, if you're familiar with Enneagram, it's a personality type test. I am an Enneagram 3, the achiever. And what the achiever struggles with the most is really being able to show up as they are. Those internal thoughts that we think in the back of our minds that we're super scared to share with anyone because we're worried people are going to judge us or put a label on us or cause us to feel less than. And that struggle of just being able to open up and share truly what's on our heart and in our minds and the thoughts that fucking float around up in there that can be a little weird and out there. That as an Enneagram 3 achiever for me, for my own self, has been a struggle to do that with friends. And that goes back since I can remember, going back to middle school. Every summer, I remember I'd go up to a summer camp up in Maine. And I remembered like those were the moments where I would go up there and felt like I could really share who I was. But also in the back of my mind, I still had this fear of really stepping in and sharing what the hell was going on in my mind with my counselors, with my the campers. And we'd be like, for our cabin, we'd have our own cabin and it'd be like 4 kids all together. It was all boys camp, and we would connect. And then as a whole camp, we go together for meals. And those were the moments I remembered where I would think back and I'd have these thoughts that would come up that I would struggle to articulate and share. And then I'd hold back. And from there, that went up into high school for me, where I always felt I had to be a part of the group and belong, which is a normal, natural tendency to happen for each of us wanting to belong. But I would take it to the point where I would hold back and I would mold my personality towards how I thought people wanted me to act so that I would be accepted to them, rather than really how I felt in the moment and how I truly wanted to act and the words I really wanted to share. And then it took me into adulthood. Going into college, I felt like with college, I had an opportunity to step into a new version of myself. Yeah, as we've talked about, I went to Charleston, South Carolina, went to the College of Charleston there. And coming from Maryland, I didn't know anyone when I went to Charleston. So it was like, this is the moment to reinvent myself. I felt shy in high school, and I really wanted to open up and share more of my weird self out there. And what happened was, by doing that, I stepped into a more confident version of who I was. But still, what kept coming up as of a block was really sharing fully the weird, quirky, silly, and sometimes those thoughts that were shameful of sharing with others. And that went through those 4 years of college. I was partying a ton. I got into my into DJing as the start of my career. And from that, after leaving college, graduating, getting into starting my career as a DJ, and then navigating the nightlife scenes, continuing to party. I mean, I'd be doing 6 nights a week of partying. I still struggled throughout my entire 20s of sharing the real me fully to friends. And I thought I was alone in that until I went on the internet and until I actually started opening up more with people, at first strangers, of sharing the challenges and just wanting to connect. I started to create evidence around me of showing that I'm not alone in this. And that's why I shared this whole journey for you, is to realize you're not alone in this feeling of um, loneliness, of isolation that can come up at moments, especially if you struggle with sharing fully who you are and communicating that to people. It is natural to have that fear come in. And I want us to take the time right now to realize why it connects to burnout, for fueling that burnout. So you can just have that awareness with our 3 red flags. And then from there, I want to get into showing you these plays that I have used personally to help me move through situations in my life where I have started to open up more to create real friends. Because what I can tell you is it is absolutely worth it to step into that and to start sharing it. And there are still things that I don't fully share with friends, yet I'm still working towards getting more and more comfortable and getting into that challenge zone of sharing that with them. And that takes work. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. So let's get into how this connects to burnout. When I think about it in my own personal experience, the story that comes up is my burnout story. I mean, 2018, when I had the social media conference. Building up to that point, I had a team. It was myself, 2 team members, then opened up to like over 20 volunteers, coordinating everyone, like having to be the guy is there making those decisions, and having to put up a front of that CEO, of that leader, and having to put away aside and suppress all of the fears that were starting to bubble up for me. I thought I had to be perfect in how I was communicating with my team members and the community overall, and to not share the challenges and mistakes that I was making. And as I was leading up to that conference, I've told you before, I signed contracts. I didn't know what I was really, truly signing. I was collecting debt. I was lying about how many people were coming into this event for attendees. And especially when it came to, I remember receiving an award for this conference even before it happened and feeling like such a fraud for collecting this award, because I had been lying so much to myself of how I felt physically and emotionally, the exhaustion that kept piling up that I was ignoring, the unwillingness to share with friends at the time and team members of really how shitty it was for the company financially, and for me from a health side of it. So in that moment, what kept coming up then was I had no way to release all of the stress that was building up to other people. And really, by being able to talk it out loud to another person and to share the challenges and struggles, now that I've gotten support through somatic practice and the being able to work through trauma that way, of again having my friend and somatic teacher Annabelle helping to hear me and what I'm going through and the shit I'm going through. What that does of just being able to talk it out to someone, to a friend, and letting them receive that, holding the space, and then being there for you, allows what would then build up as stress within us and then lead into chronic stress. It allows us to let that go. It allows us to let it flow out, and from there we can minimize the compounding effect that stress is going to have on us. Because going back to the first red flag of burnout, when we hit that first red flag, it's from the chronic stress that's building up over time that then causes the immune system to change its response into this chronic inflammation that forms. And then from there, that leads into that chronic exhaustion. And we're already creating that negativity within us if we're not able to talk it out loud to other people and to get perspective. That's a beautiful thing about having friends to come in, is they can then share their perspective of what is going on for you to help bring you down to earth, to realize it doesn't have to be a big situation as much as we make up in our minds. And there's so much amazingness in that. And for me at the conference, I did not step into that and take action in that of really sharing what was going on. I even got a message recently from a friend who listened to the first episode of this podcast and was helping me at the time during in that time period of 2018, and was like, dude, I wish you had told me. And hearing those words, I was like, well, shit, I wish I'd done that too. I wish I had said something. And so I don't want that for you to have that happen, especially right now. I've realized as a stat, this was something I found online that I want to highlight for you, that and you may be in this group right here, but it was a survey that was done by American Perspective Survey. When you look at these articles that are done, you start to realize it's all coming potentially from one root cause or one root source, not one root cause, but one root source. And it's this survey. And what it showed was, there's this one data point I want to highlight for you, was that back in 1990, the number of close friends that Americans had back then, for 3% of Americans said they had no close friendships. And then in 2021, 12% said they had no close friendships. That's a massive growth. And you may be one of those people that feels like you have no close friends, that you have no real friends. And I want to tell you that I know that there can be shame there. I know there can be feeling of there's something wrong, but I can tell you that you can make the change and make the shift, because there was moments where even though I had friends, I felt at times like I did not have any real friends. And it's not to have a pity party here, but it's just to tell you that you're not alone in that. And even these percentages show that you're not alone in it, but we can do something about it. We can take on the responsibility and the action. And instead of blaming, which is something I did, I was blaming other people, of saying, okay, I don't trust like that they're going to be able to receive what I'm wanting to share for one of these thoughts that I'm having. For example, this feeling of doubting myself for this event, for the 2018 conference. I didn't even allow my friends to have the opportunity to show up. I made the decision for them of saying they can't handle this, so I'm not going to even share it for them. And then getting that message from that friend just a little while back, super recent, last 24 hours, I was wrong. I was wrong. And I don't want you to make the same mistake either in this. So understanding this survey, a little bit more of the data, like understanding what's happened currently when it comes to the pandemic, to this move to remote work, we're realizing that things are shifting and things are changing. And I'm going to get into these plays that I want to talk about of how you can start to make those changes. But it's also, we got to understand the landscape that we're in, because we've gone through the pandemic. So there's been a lot of isolation. And another stat that I want to put out there, that you may also be in right here, is that for the last 12 months, when the survey was done back in 2021, men from 18 to 29 years old, 43% said that they had lost touch with a few friends in the last 12 months. For women, it was that are 18 to 29-year-olds, it was 43% said they had lost touch with a few friends. I can relate to that, of you losing touch with a few friends. I think about my friends I had in college, to where my friends now, to those friends I had in middle school and high school. And I realized I've lost touch with many, and understanding that there are certain friends that you had for a certain point in your chapter, and then understanding that you can move and grow, and not, and then friends sometimes don't join you along the way. And that's okay. That happens. Yet we also got to make sure that we are creating a way for us to reconnect with new friends. And to start to be able to build solid and amazing support systems for ourselves, because that's what friends do. for us. And we tend to lose that in this age, is that friends are there to be able to be a support for us and for us to support them. And it's beautiful when that cycle happens. It's such like an awesome, amazing flow of being able to give and then receive. So we've gone through the pandemic and we've had that isolation that's come up. And I know for me, and I share with you, when I moved back to my parents, I had no friends in the area, no friends in the immediate area. And what also has happened is a move to go towards remote work because of the pandemic. That fueled a lot of companies to go to remote work. Then we can get comfortable when we're at home and we feel safe because we're getting in routine. We feel we don't want to take as many risks of getting outside. Going back to, I know one of those plays I've talked about before of getting outside, the importance of that. But we can get locked into these new habits that form of staying in one location, having minimal risks of anything happening to us, and we can live into that fear state. And I think back to ways that we make friends. A big way that I had made friends growing up was through in-person experiences. And that ties into this play, the first play, which is finding an in-person experience for something you are interested in. That's the first play. Because I think back to my own journey throughout life, like it was school. It was a big one of how I made friends. You know, going back to kindergarten, elementary, middle, high school, all throughout those points, I'd be friends with the people that I was in class with. And that was how I found friends. And then as I transitioned into college, it was my college friends. And there's this stat that has come up, which is wild, but there's a stat recently that showed that one college is closing every week. And that blows my mind because all of a sudden that's a way I made friends that's starting to minimize for opportunities for other people. And then when I got into my 20s, I remembered that became a really hard time for me to make friends. I ended up doing this thing where I wanted to meet people. And so I asked to interview people in person and also virtually for some, but it was like 150 20-something-year-olds I interviewed because I was lonely. At the time, I was sharing of like, hey, I want to connect with 20-somethings. I might write a book about it. It'd be cool to ask like deeper level questions. And so I'd ask them of, what does alone mean to you? And I'd ask them other words of like, what would I'm trying now I'm struggling with another one of a question I asked. But I was like, what does observation mean to you? Just like these deeper understanding questions, and a little weird for the questions. But it was because I was lonely. I wanted to connect with other people. But I could not say I needed friends. And I had friends at the time, but I wasn't opening up and sharing with them of what was going on because I had made that decision for them rather than showing up and just sharing, this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm struggling with. So bringing that back into finding an in-person experience for something you're interested in. Well, for me, what I've done was I love to go for runs. And so I joined like group runs is one thing I did. Wellness centers, going to wellness centers and finding events was another. I even ended up volunteering for events. That's how I got started with that company 29 of 29. I volunteered for an in-person endurance running event. So that could be some examples of ways that you could find in-person experiences for something you are interested in. It could be painting class, could be cooking class, but investing your time into friendship development is so important. I think back to the stats, like I think of isolation and this feeling of loneliness of where that leads, right? And there's that stat out there that every 11 minutes in the US, someone dies by suicide. And for me, I remembered that there were these moments that would come up in my life where I would think to that of like, what would happen if I'm not here? And that pain that we feel going back to that stress and that overwhelm, when that compounds, that is moving us towards that path of burnout. And then from there, it can go to an even deeper level and scarier level. And I don't want us to be going down that path. And that is one of those plays that is so important, is in person. Being able to actually connect with a human being in person is one of the greatest ways to feel that connection of a human being to another human being is in person. And so being able to find those experiences for you, fucking do it. It is worth it. Absolutely. To take that step. And so that's play number 1 that you can try out. I'll tell you, you'll have a new level of fun that comes into it. Even if you suck at painting, but you're interested, go for it. You suck at cooking. I know for me, I'm trying to work on my cooking skills. Like, go for it. Take that step. Realize it is an investment of your time, but it is absolutely worth it for that support system that can allow you the space to talk things out, to just share things out with what's going on through friendship. Because the friends too, I think about that as being a friend for others. I so appreciate being that call that someone calls and says, hey, I'm not feeling so great right now. I want to talk it out with you. Or I'm so pumped about this win that I just had. Like this, I want to share it with you. Like this is something I'm so proud of. That's awesome to be able to have someone like that to do that. And it fuels us. It allows us to get excited about life. It allows us to celebrate. And it allows us to know that there are going to be people that are in our corner of support. And I want to let you know that you have that within you. There are people out there, even strangers that you have not met yet, that could be new friends for you. Play number 2. For those that have friends right now, and that you may consider not real friends because you haven't shared certain things with them, but that you have friends. A play for you that you can try is to talk to one friend through in-person activity or a virtual call where you're actually having a conversation rather than text or voice messages back and forth, because I do that. And you can share something that feels challengingly scary is like my phrase for it. Challengingly scary, meaning it's not too big of a scare where like you don't want, especially if you haven't done this before, you don't want to overwhelm the other person. But it could be something that you really aren't ready to share yet. But what is something that is challengingly scary, and you feel like it's in the challenge zone. It's not super out of the challenge zone, but it's something that's challenging that you're willing to step into and share. And that could just be, for example, hey, today was not my day. Or I really am doubting myself in the work that I'm doing right now. Or I want to make a change and move in a different direction in my career, but I just don't know what to do. Like, I'd like to just talk it out. Being able to just share that with one friend in 1 week, like one friend per week, doing that, you will realize how much of a release and lighter feeling comes over you. How you're able to just release that heaviness, that pressure, that burden, that stress, and it just starts to melt away. It's like butter melting. It just like simmers on out of the body. And I know I've done this, and it's something I continue to work on. I struggle with it. Going back to achiever in me of Enneagram 3 of like really showing up. It's something I do have to work on consistently. But stepping into that, every time I do it, I feel lighter. I feel like something has been released from me. And that helps me to avoid burnout and continue to make burnout extinct. So that is play number 2. Play number 3 is something I've already talked about, and I want to add into it again here because it is really important when it comes to us taking responsibility on ourselves, not blaming others, but realizing we have a part to play in this, and then being able to step into that. And that is being proud of yourself for each action you take to invest time into friendships. So what does that mean, being proud of yourself in this moment? Well, it's celebrating after each call that you do with your buddies, like with your friends, where you're just like, dude, I finished that. That's awesome. Or like, that was amazing. I was able to have a great connection with my friend. Like, that was really cool. Celebrate that. So the body remembers that this is something you want more of, because that's what's going to help you to make it easier for the habit to stick of doing it. If that is talking to a friend once a week, if that's going into an in-person experience, after you're done with that in-person experience, celebrate the hell out of it for yourself. be fired up. That could be like, for me, it'd be like the fist in the air or like pumping my chest, being like, fuck yeah, I just did that. I just went to that painting class. Let's go. I have not yet been to a painting class, so this might be my call out for myself of like going to a painting class. But like whatever it is for that in-person experience, being pumped up and fired up to do it. And I will tell you that then compounds over time, because it's not going to just happen overnight. I've shared that before. Starting small is so important, but you'll realize when you look at it over a long period of time, there's going to be so much progress that can be made. And you're going to be surprised as to what happens and how fast it happens for you. But the really helpful part of this is being able to have the consistency to create that new habit. And being able to take these 3 plays and figuring out what's going to work for you is going to be super awesome of a step to take towards being able to avoid the burnout and then make burnout extinct. And I will tell you, I struggle with this currently to this day when it comes to friends, and really being able to show my friends what's going on in my life. Because the struggle right now is I travel with my partner. We live more of that nomadic lifestyle, her and I work from home a lot of times if I'm not going and speaking at events, or like I'm focused in on this podcast, I'm in front of my computer, I'm working. And so I really have to stay focused of connecting virtually with my friends. And then a goal of mine is to continue to meet in person so I can continue to strengthen that friendship and grow that friendship. So I do want you to realize, even now to this day, it is something that I'm working on. And it's something I will continue to work on. And I want you to know it's never a one and done situation that happens with this. This is something to continue to work on, to when those moments of frustration comes up, honor those where you fall off of like deciding not to, like, you haven't been to an in-person experience for the past 3 weeks. Well, that's okay. You got tomorrow. Tomorrow's another day to reset, and then the next day, and then the next day. So it's keeping on showing up for you, building that trust within yourself, knowing that you absolutely are capable of creating real friends. Everyone has the ability to do that. That is my belief. And I'm excited for you to move forward in this. This is a conversation I know is not just a one and done for this podcast. It's something I continue to want to expand on and get other key thought innovators and leaders in this space of how we navigate friendship in this modern era, because it is a struggle right now. And I know so many of us struggle with this at the moment, and yet we can make a change and make a shift of changing this narrative towards being able to create more real friends and being able to avoid the burnout, and then from there, making burnout extinct. So my ask for you is, from these plays, which one can you take in and implement in the next few days? Which one do you want to try out to add into your burnout-proof playbook? And from there, you can share with me your experience of how that goes. You can connect with me on Instagram and LinkedIn to be able to do that. And I'm so excited for you. As I've said, this is something I'm focused in on right now. It is something that I am pumped for you to explore and to work on for yourself, because I just know how rewarding it is and the effects it has for us and our well-being. So if you like this episode, please don't forget to rate this podcast to help get this message out of make burnout extinct. And as I've told you before, you can share what resonates with you from this episode by connecting with me on Instagram or LinkedIn. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. I don't take that for granted. Excited to reconnect again soon. If you got something that resonated from this episode, please take the time to rate this show. You can rate it on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify, depending on where you're listening this on. I appreciate that. It helps us to continue to move forward, for me, for the motivation to keep showing up for you, and it helps to understand what is resonating too with you. So excited to reconnect again soon.